Predict, pick, and prevail in your fantasy football leagues with Nick Giacobbe and Nick Cap. From breakouts to busts, superstars to sleepers, these are the guys that will help you achieve fantasy glory. This is the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast.
Welcome everybody to Season 2, Episode 38 of the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast, where we give you our predictions, our picks, with the hopes that we help you prevail throughout Week 7, upcoming Week 7 at least, and the rest of the 2022 fantasy football season. I'm your host, Nick Giacobbe. Joining me is Nick Cap. Nick, we have undecided matchups going into Monday Night Football tonight. Week 6 was chaotic. I reiterate what I said last week. We know absolutely nothing.
Yes, we know absolutely nothing except one thing, one little thing, which I'll pound the desk about later.
We're going to talk about it. Don't worry. I have a soliloquy planned. I'm saving it. But I do have a soliloquy planned. Don't worry. It's going to come out. I do want to say through 6 weeks, I could tell you like 3 things about teams. The Bills are very, very good. And there's the rest. That's what I got. Any team can basically beat any team. And that's all I got. That's really all I got right now when it comes to this. And in terms of fantasy, there are only a couple surefire guys that are going to produce every single week, and you either have those guys or you don't. That's all I got, Nick. That's all I got for you for this opening. So we have a lot to talk about. It's going to be a lot of fun. Monday shows are always a lot of fun. If you tuned into our live stream yesterday, Sunday mornings, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time on our YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, thank you so much for doing that. We've got a lot of questions. Hopefully we helped you guys out. If you played Jeff Wilson like we told you to, I do apologize about that. We were wrong about that, as a lot of other people were. But if you listen to a couple of our other takes, we did give some other solid ones out that actually did work in your favor. So thank you to everybody that joined. Hopefully we did help your teams out a little bit. We do that show every Sunday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time on our Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. So please join us for those. We love answering your questions. We love talking fantasy with you guys. We love joking. It's a lot of fun. I look forward to waking up early on Sundays to do that with you guys. If you watch that show and now it's your first time listening to us on a recorded fashion, welcome. Thank you for that. We do the show on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. All audio versions of the show are available on all audio streaming platforms: iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcast. If you're on iTunes or Spotify, please give us a 5-star rating and a review. If you'd rather watch and listen to the show like you will do on a Sunday morning, go to our YouTube channel, PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. Every episode is uploaded to there. If you're watching this video on YouTube, drop a like, hit that subscribe button, smash that alert button so you get alerts when the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast is uploaded again Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Keep interacting with us on social media: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, PrimeTimeFFPod. Facebook and YouTube is PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. Now, normally we would go into an injury segment, but there wasn't a ton of injuries this week, and the ones that there were kind of happened in the games. I guess they always happen in the games, but we're just going to mention the injuries that did happen when we talk about the game-by-game segment. So our injury segment is kind of with our weekend wrap. So let us go to the weekend wrap. And you know what, Nick? We're going off script. We're going right to the Jets and the Packers.
Oh, baby.
Man, I hope you guys turned your volume down for that one. We're going to go a little bit off script. It's not first in my notes. I actually do the notes off of how ESPN lists the game, so it's not any favoritism. I definitely don't want to talk about San Francisco and Atlanta, which is the first game I have there. So, Nick, I'm going to give you the option. Do you want to hear me talk, or do you want to talk?
Let's hear you talk a little bit.
All right.
Jets football.
We're going to talk Jets football for a second. So first off, I was wrong about the Jets yesterday. I was 100% sure that the Packers are going to go back to Lambeau very angry and play very well. I had them in my survivor pick, and I lost my chance at $15,000. Very bad. Some notes that I have in my head, I don't have them written down, so they're not really notes per se. I think the Jets are building something. I do. I don't think they're a great football team, so I'm going to temper the expectations, and Nick may not want to hear that, but I don't think the Jets played out of their mind, but I think they played above their standards, and I think they played a very good game in Lambeau. Now, on the flip side, I think the Packers are bad. I don't think it's another word to describe them. Like, I don't think they're a good football team at this point. I don't see where their strength is. Their defense isn't good. Their special teams is pretty horrendous. Their kicking isn't great. Rodgers he's not even looking like Kirk Cousins out there. The receiving core is like, none of those 3 receivers are probably starting number 2 options on like 25 teams. So I think the Jets defense looks good. I think that their draft was great. like their last 2 drafts, I'd say, are really great. They traded Jamal Adams to my Seahawks, and they traded Sam Darnold, and they got really good picks out of it. And you know what? That's how you build the team, is through the draft and nailing your draft pick. So I do want to say that. Would I say I think the Jets make the playoffs? Probably not. Do I think they can win 8 games? Yeah, I think that's possible. I'd have to look at the schedule, if I'm being honest with you, but I think they're building something, and that's how you get better in the NFL. Most teams don't go from, what'd you win last year? 4 games? 5?
Yeah, I think so. 4 or 5.
Let's say 5. Most teams don't go from 5 wins to 13. But I will give your Jets props. They look very good. They went into a very tough atmosphere that's still tough to win in, I think. And they won. And they looked good doing it. And Sauce Gardner wearing the cheese head was hilarious. So kudos to that. I was very mad at myself about the Survivor pick. However, I was picking San Francisco up until yesterday, and then I flipped it to the Packers. So both lost. So no matter what, I would have been a double loser. So I'm not super duper upset about that. Now let's talk about it from a fantasy standpoint. And I have 2 notes here. As good as the Jets look, from a fantasy standpoint, they are not a fantasy friendly team besides Breece Hall, who is an absolute monster. And when we do our Sunday shows, you could ask a question involving Breece Hall, but the answer is always going to be to play him. He needs to be on that level of where you don't even need to ask us if he should be played or not. That's my opinion. I'm sure Nick agrees, but I don't think that's a question anymore. Aside from that, I don't really want to start a lot of Jets in fantasy, and I think that's fair. My one last note, the Packers suck. They're really bad. Like, I think Rodgers is droppable. If you're in a 10-man league, I think I'd rather roster like Tua or Geno. Like, I don't think Rodgers should be rostered at this point. And I don't think any Packer is playable except for maybe Aaron Jones on a matchup-based week. You done? I am done. That's all I got. That's all you got? Do people need to lower their volume right now? Like how? No. I'm gonna keep it cool. Real quick. First off, Nick, you said angry Aaron Rodgers is a man to be threatened with. I'll tell you who was mad. Those New York Jets defense. That defense came out fighting. That defense is elite. And my biggest takeaway for fantasy is that is a team that people are going to fear. Now, I know what you said about those receivers. Do they have the best receiving core in the league? Absolutely not. But this is week to week to week to week where we have watched the Jets defense stomp offensive juggernauts. The worst game of the year for the best wide receiving duo for fantasy so far, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, came against the New York Jets. You could say it was with a backup quarterback if you want, but they had a third stringer starting at first, and Tyreek Hill just put up 150 yards today. Say what you want. Jets defense is really, really a good defense. And I know Nick doesn't want to think they're a good team. They are a good team. The offense is not great. I don't think they're a bad team. I don't think 8 wins is a bad team. I think that's a good team. I just don't think they're a great team. I think so. They're scheduled down the stretch, going off the top of my head. I know they have 2 matchups with New England, which I think are winnable. They have the Jaguars, the Lions, and the Bears in the second half of the schedule. There's a very big upside that they're a 9-10 win team by the end of the year. I'm not saying they're going to. 4? They're at 4? What are they at now? They're at 4 right now. They're 4-2. I would have them at 8 or 9. We'll see. But yeah. I also want to note this. I want to see the Jets against the Bills because, to me, the best passing team they faced was the Bengals, and Burrow had 275, 3 touchdowns. Boyd had 4 for 105. Higgins 593. So I don't think, and that's not a knock on the Jets defense. That's just saying that as good as they are, and as young as they are, I think they're going to get better in the next year or two. I would temper expectations for stars, but I wouldn't. They're not going against like the 2015 Broncos or LOB is, I guess, my point. But I definitely, but I will say this though, Cortland Sutton next week. So that's my line. Cortland Sutton next week. I think he's making an appearance on my all boom or bust team, and it's not on the boom team. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one because we all know that's been my guy for the year. And now he's got to go up against the best cornerback in football in Sauce Gardner. And Russell Wilson looks horrendous. So I will pound the desk about sitting Russell Wilson next week. So now, real quick, my last point and my true fantasy point that I want to take away: there is no offensive Jet player rosterable at this moment except for Breece Hall. I think that's fair. Would you consider Michael Carter though if Breece Hall goes down? Carter, yes. Carter's a good handcuff. He's a good handcuff to someone else's handcuff. Like he is, because he does look very good. Like Breece just looks like an athletic, better running back. Like they both look good. You see why they drafted him, and that's the takeaway. And you want to know my favorite tweet that I saw today? The Jets traded Sam Darnold for the pick that drafted Breece Hall. Yeah, I mean,
Way to go, Joey D.
There you go. There you go. And I don't think that Zach Wilson looks bad per se, but I don't think we've seen him have the chance to look good or bad, if that makes sense. The system right now is running the ball, and if that works, that works. That's what Russell Wilson did for like 4 years. So anyway, we move up the Jets and Green Bay game. We're now going to go to the game that I was going to pick as my survivor pick, San Francisco at Atlanta. So you want to go first? You want me to go first? There's a lot to unpack in this one.
So I don't get the Atlanta Falcons, and it's not just this year. It's been the last 4 years where, like, we don't get it, right? Like, it was Julio, and then it was Calvin Ridley, and now it's Drake London, and all three, and Kyle Pitts last year, and all four for 4 years have been the most inconsistent player in fantasy football, right? Like this week, your top two guys, one of them had to go off. Kyle Pitts, Drake London, 7 total targets. You would think, all right, they got blown out by San Francisco. No, they won the game. Where does it add up? No player played well for the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah.
None of them. I think Mariota had a good game.
I think the defense played well. The defense played well enough.
Yeah, the defense played well against Jimmy G. It's like I said last week, the only way that they're going to be able to put up fantasy relevant numbers or touchdowns would be if they were forcing turnovers, and that's exactly what they did. I know you love Ayuk. You liked him a lot going into the year, and he had his big day. So, I mean, I'll pass it over to you. But
yeah, I mean, I think my big takeaway is that, like, I said this to my roommate, and it's like, this is the most unpredictable year in the NFL. And I tried to say it at the beginning of the show, but it's like, I could back up everything with stats. I could back up everything with matchup based performances, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality of it is, we know nothing. Like, Jeff Wilson had a horrible game. I think he had 2 points, but the Falcons just let up 29 points to Leonard Fournette.
5.
Yeah. The Falcons just let up 29 points to Leonard Fournette. Jeff Wilson had 4 straight weeks with double-digit fantasy points. Like, the whole game script was that Jeff Wilson was going to have a good game.
Yeah.
And then we have Brandon Ayuk go out there, 883, 2 touchdowns. Kittle finally had a good game, 8 for 83. Debo 5 for 79. So, in an offense is talented. They're not all going to get theirs every week, and that's okay. But we can only tell you so much information, and we can only be right about so many things. And a lot of these teams are really freaking hard to forecast, and you'll hear it throughout the show, but it is really hard to forecast. And by the way, Kyle Pitts is alive. That's wonderful. and don't be so upset about the Kyle Pitts number being, he needed the touchdown. Yes, he did to have a productive game. Otherwise, he would have had 5 fantasy points, but they were facing the number 1 defense against tight ends. So this was chalk this up as a win for Kyle Pitts owners, and we'll see what happens next week. So anyway, let's move on to the New England Patriots at the Cleveland Browns. And me and Nick perfectly forecasted this game. One thing I want to do is, when me and Nick do our all boom and all bust teams, I think we got to keep it real with you guys. When we talk about a player and we're wrong, we should admit it, and when we're right, we should admit it. And I had Nick Chubb in my bust team, and a friend of mine at first said to me, sarcastically, "Oh, good take over there. Nick Chubb's the guy who's had 100 yards and a touchdown every week." And then I explained my take to him. I said, "I know you didn't listen to the show, but this is my take." And then he said, "That's a good point." And my take about Nick Chubb was that Bill Belichick takes away the number 1 option. Nick Chubb does not catch the ball a lot. So if he doesn't get that touchdown, he's probably not having more than 15 fantasy points. And on top of that, Jacoby Brissett was a former Bill Belichick quarterback, and he's not going to look good. Well, Nick Chubb did not have a good game. I think he had 50 yards, 60 yards. And a catch. So 7 fantasy points? That's not a good Nick Chubb game. So I will pat myself on the back a little bit for that one. Aside from that, there's a lot of really good points here. I mean, I had Ramondre Stevenson as a boom. Everybody expected it, 75 yards, 2 touchdowns. So, good call by me and good call by just about everybody. I think the last point I'll bring up, and then you could get into whatever you want to talk about. David Njoku is pretty much a lock for your lineup every week. 3 for 58. So 8 fantasy points on 6 targets. Brissett likes him. Brissett trusts him. I think he's in that tier of trustable tight ends. He's not Kelsey, but he's trustable.
Yeah, my point was going to be about him because I had him on my old boom team, and I thought I would get a little bit more from him. But the whole point was that he is getting such a safe workload, and his skill, like, they're actually starting to lean into it. So this was his 4th game in a row with at least 6 targets. I think he's going to be a must start the rest of the way. Next week, they go up against Baltimore, who was very bad to pass catchers. Then they get Cincinnati, who just let up a lot of points over to New Orleans. they have a very good schedule the rest of the way for Njoku to be fantasy relevant. My only big fear is, he's going to get it's my fear with all these Browns, right? Like Jacoby Brissett is very good, but by the time week 13 comes, it's a whole new offense once Deshaun Watson, because Deshaun Watson's coming in. They're obviously not going to bench him. It's going to be his offense. He's going to be so far removed. It's for me, I think I'd rather go trade Amari Cooper, where he's got this 12 target day, and Njoku, where I think a lot of people see the talent. Me and Nick aren't the only two people seeing Amari Cooper get 10 plus targets and Njoku gets 6+, right? I think these two guys have a lot of trade value at the moment, even off not their best game. And I don't trust the offense when Deshaun Watson comes back in. That schedule after that Houston matchup is going to be Cincinnati. Week 1 is Baltimore. Then they get New Orleans, who is not a very good matchup. I know they let up in lots of Jamar Chase, but if Marshawn Lattimore is there, it's not a good matchup. And then Washington, who has actually been a very good defense this year. So, it's not a good situation, I think, for these Browns guys. They have a lot of value at the moment. I think, even off the bad game, I think I would look to pivot and try and trade them, because week 9 they have the bye, and I'm pretty sure that's the trade deadline or the following week.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
So I think try trading them after this week if you have them. I think there's a good value to capitalize on.
I also want to mention one other point. Zeppi doesn't have a favorite target yet, which makes playing Patriots wide receivers a bit unplayable. However, Zeppi had 300 yards and has looked good through a couple of weeks. So if he remains the starter, he's on fantasy radars. Jacksonville at the Indianapolis Colts. This was a bad beat for everybody that had Jacksonville. I'll pat myself on back again. I was right about Michael Pittman. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I'm pretty sure he had 120 yards and 11 receptions, maybe.
I think he had more than 120 yards.
He had an awesome game, and he was on my all boom team, so I do want to mention that one. Christian Kirk has fallen back to earth. Before the touchdown, I think he only had 4 or 5 fantasy points. Yes, he got the touchdown. I know. However, his points have declined every week, so I think my original take about Kirk may have been right. Last point, Travis Etienne, another game better than James Robinson going forward. I think Etienne's the running back that you want. James Robinson will probably be the goal line back, but I think Etienne's becoming the back that they wanted, and I think he's a really nice trade for candidate that could save you later on in the season, and I don't think his value is high at all right now.
So I have this year's Travis Fulgham in Deion Jackson to talk about. Do you remember Travis Fulgham, Eagles wide receiver? Do you remember him or no?
I know the name. I don't remember much about him besides his name.
So he had a 2-week stretch where he was an absolute fantasy monster and then fell off the face of the universe. So
sounds like a Patriots player.
It does sound like a Patriots player. Surprisingly, it was an Eagle. But anyway, Deion Jackson, monster game. Only 42 yards on the ground in the touchdown, but 10 catches, 80 yards, winded up posting 28 fantasy points. He was a beast. And my big takeaway from it isn't Deion Jackson. It's the Colts finally figured out a way to move the ball down the field. And it worries me for Jonathan Taylor, because when Nyheim Hines comes back, those 10 targets that went to that running back, those aren't Taylor's targets. Let's be real. They weren't last year. They're not going to be this year. I'm very worried for Jonathan Taylor on the rest of the year. I think he's either a big trade for or a big trade away. And I think it will make or break your season. I have Taylor in a league. I'm not sure what I want to do, because the schedule is kind of easy in the playoffs. It's very easy. They get Minnesota and the Chargers the first 2 weeks. So very big upside for Taylor. But at the same time, if they're playing from behind, they're checking down to the running back. That's what they're going to do. And it's Nyheim Hines' role. That's the only reason he saw this type of workload this week. And if he didn't get injured, he would have had a 30-plus day. He looked good, but the fact is you can't take anything away from him. You just got to look at Taylor and Nyheim Hines, and the fact is when they're back, that's a split backfield. What you saw today with Deion Jackson, they trusted him to be a 3-down back, and they're just not going to use Jonathan Taylor like that.
And I do want to mention I was wrong about Deion Jackson. On the entire pregame show, Nick was pounding the desk about it, and I looked at every analytic and was against it. So Nick was right about that one. We do split on some things, which helps and it hurts. Okay.
Yeah.
Minnesota Vikings at the Miami Dolphins, and just I don't know. This game is weird to me. It was 3-3 at half or something, and then it was 24-17 at the end. I don't know, something like that. Let's talk about this, Nick, because my original note was that Hill and Waddle are quarterback proof. You said not matchup proof, though, and I want your take on that, because I think they are matchup proof because matchup proof to me doesn't mean that they can never have bad games. It just means that I don't want to bench them in most instances.
Sure. So my take is quite simple. I mean, you're not going to bench them, but you have to temper expectations when they're going up against a team that is bad against running backs. So what I mean by that is when Raheem Mostert and Chase Edmonds can get the ball down the field, they're going to use them. They completely cut Raheem Mostert out of the game in the second half because they were moving the ball so much more effective in the air, and Raheem Mostert couldn't break away, couldn't use his legs, couldn't use his speed against Minnesota. Tyreek Hill, 15 targets today. Jalen Waddle, I believe he had 10. So that's 25 to your leading two receivers. Next week, you have Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is solid against running backs, but terrible to receivers. Should be a good matchup. At Detroit, good matchup. At Chicago or at Detroit, good matchup for them, good matchup for the running back. Like, that's all around great game should be for them. Then they have Chicago. And Chicago, I think, is the trickiest defense in the league because they are actually a very good defense, just a very bad, like, overall offense. So, the team is going to keep getting the ball. Like, Tua is going to have the ball repeatedly in that game, and he's back next week. So, like, I don't see the consistency enough. Like, I see the workload consistency, but I see two low games, Buffalo and Jets. Those are the two best secondaries that they've played so far this year, and the Jets are very good against the run. Buffalo's pretty good against the run, or actually elite against the run. And it's going to be hard because I don't think either of us will ever put them on our all-bust team. Like, I don't think there's a matchup where we're going to not feel confident in Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle from the rest of the season. But there's going to be a lot of these lull games, like the 5-point game 3 weeks ago, the 12-point game for Tyreek Hill 2 weeks ago. Like, there's going to be a lot more of those, and I'm just scared they're going to happen a little more frequently than we think.
At what point do you believe in them, though? Because against the Bills, Waddle had 4 for 102. Tyreek didn't have a great game, but that was a low-scoring game. And then against your Jets, I think Tyreek had 7 for 47. So not a great game. The Jets game was definitely their worst. And I don't want to throw the excuse book out there, but it was a third-string quarterback, who looked better this week as a third-string quarterback that hadn't taken reps in practice.
He didn't look good. He got hurt, and then they used Bridgewater again. Bridgewater was the emergency backup. Bridgewater outplayed him.
You're right. Yeah, you're right about that. Again, on the red zone, you only see so much. So my point being, I don't want to. I think the Jets defense is better than most defenses in the league. I do. However, when they play the Jets again in 6 weeks, I'm not really. I'm a Tyreek Hill owner, and I'm not like scared. I'm not tempering expectations for me because as long as Tua's playing, I think I'm still pretty confident in my receiver. That's well. I think Tyreek has like 500 yards already.
The Jets again in the fantasy.
In the fantasy, okay. So then that's irrelevant. But my point being, I want to know from you, when do you feel confident in these two then? Because they both have like close to 500 yards, and I think they have combined for maybe 6 touchdowns.
I'm confident in them. I'm not confident. I just do think they're going to have a lot more inconsistencies. Like, they're not both going to be able to maintain massive fantasy production. Like, we saw it week 2 against Baltimore where they combined for 82 points. Like, that was one of the biggest outliers in fantasy football history. And they haven't both put up a monster game since. I think they've had one against Cincinnati, and that was really it. And I know there's been a little Teddy Bridgewater, Skylar Thompson in there, but they just haven't both put up massive, massive production where I do think there's going to be those waves and those lulls. Like when you have someone like Mike Gesicki go in there and score a touchdown, I think he had like a 20-point game today. Like, that's a much bigger hit to those two guys than, like Hayden Hurst catching a touchdown.
Well, again, I'm going to go 4 games here. Today, they both boomed. The Bengals game, I think they both boomed. They didn't boom the Bengals game. They did not both boom the Bengals game. Tyreek boomed the Bengals game. So we're looking at about over 3 weeks. Over 6 weeks. 3 of those weeks, they both boomed and had over 13 fantasy points. So you do make a point. You do make a good point. But I guess I'm higher on them than you are, as knowing the talent over there and seeing the production over 6 weeks. I'm confident playing both every week, and there's really no matchup that I'm saying.
I am very confident in Tyreek. Tyreek's putting up better fantasy numbers on a per game basis than he did in Kansas City.
Yeah, he looks awesome. He looks awesome. I think we're both a little bit lower on him, and he looks freaking awesome out there. He's phenomenal. That trade is working on their favor. And last thing, I know we've talked about Miami for a little bit, and we got to speed up a tiny bit. I'm going to give McDaniel credit because this team looks really good with the different quarterbacks that they've had to throw out there. And I know Teddy B's he's not a guy off the street, but I want to give McDaniel credit for, how he's handled this team and the offense over there. Cincinnati at New Orleans. This was an interesting game because New Orleans had nobody and still almost won the game.
I'll go first.
You probably should go first, yeah.
So my big takeaway is, and I said it at the last season on the podcast, when I said, anytime I say Jamar Chase is going to bust, he is going to boom. Yeah, I said Marshawn Lattimore was going to play and lock down Jamar Chase. Well, Marshawn Lattimore did not play. And I said if you caught the live stream today, I said, I messed up. Jamar Chase is going to go off.
Now, in your defense, I'm cutting off, but when you made the all boom team, Lattimore wasn't scheduled to be out. So I do want to back you on that. Like, that wasn't your fault. The graphic was made and sent out, and then he was ruled out. So that's not 100% on you. But I did tell you to stop busting Jamar Chase because he always bites you in the butt. Like, I don't care if he's facing Deion Sanders. Well, if you bust him against Deion Sanders, he'd find a way to have a good game. It's just kind of how it is.
Here's the one thing I will say, right? Like, Jamar Chase had a great day, but if he didn't have that one monster touchdown, he had an average, like, he hits his projection. If he didn't have the monster touchdown, he doesn't have the boom wide receiver.
His projection's also really high, though. I mean, without that touchdown,
like 16,
he still has
17.
He still has 6 receptions for like 80 yards and a touchdown. This is like a 20-point day. It's an awesome day. No matter what.
Well, my point being, I'm done talking Jamar Chase ever again.
But I'm not done.
I'm gonna boom him this week, and we're gonna see what happens.
Hold on. I'm not done talking about the quarterback one of the week, Joe Burrow. Any thoughts? Any thoughts on him? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, he didn't have to go up against Marshawn Lattimore.
All right, he's gonna finish as a top 10 quarterback on the season. You know who won't though? Stafford, who I was wrong about, but Burrow is gonna finish as a top 10 fantasy quarterback on the season. All right.
We'll see.
My last note, Joe Mixon looked really bad again, and I don't think it's a him thing, like it's an offense thing, but I will say this, go trade for Joe Mixon if you can. I think he's a really great trade for candidate for a team that's in first place in their division, is going to score a lot of points, is going to be on offense a lot, and they do like Mixon. They use him as a 3-down back most of the time. So I think he's a really good trade for candidate if you need a running back. I hope the people that I don't play in leagues with are listening to this, because I am attacking Joe Mixon in every league possible. Baltimore Ravens at the New York Giants. I don't understand the Giants. I don't even know what they're good at, but they keep winning. I don't think they're good on offense. I don't even think they're good on defense, and they keep winning. Like, I can't tell you what they do good or what their best position group is, but they keep winning. So there you go. My take from this is that J.K. Dobbins' role isn't set in stone. He was last in attempts, last in yards, no receptions, or maybe he had 1 or 2 receptions. My point being, and the guys that got the carries were like Kenyon Drake and somebody else. It wasn't Justice Hill. It wasn't the Gus Bus. Like, this is not a great situation for J.K. Dobbins. I think he's still a little bit banged up, and I don't know if they completely trust him in terms of either his health or his football ability. But there's something off there, and I'm not comfortable playing J.K. Dobbins every week. It's why I traded him before the season in my dynasty league, and I'm happy that I did.
So my biggest takeaway is, like, who the hell do you roster from these two teams? Because we know Lamar, we know Andrews, we know Saquon, and then what, right? Like, I
think that's it. Like, on a normal roster, I think that's it.
Like, let's be honest, and I'm not even talking, like, receivers. We trusted Kadarius Toney, hasn't been healthy, right? Like, Wan'Dale Robinson had a lot of hype, had a solid game because he found the end zone, but still only 3 catches for 30 yards and the touchdown, which gave him a solid fantasy week. For the Ravens, Kenyon Drake, who has not been able to succeed without J.K. Dobbins as a 3-down back, had his best fantasy day of the year. Then you have the Ravens defense, who has sucked to wide receivers, and they get the Giants matchup, so you're not going to play them. Justin Tucker, sure, he's rosterable. Giants defense looks good. Are you really going to trust them with any matchup outside of Washington on the year? Probably not, right? Like, let's be realistic. If they're going up against a good team, you're not trusting them. So they're a streamer. They're not rosterable. And then Rashad Bateman hasn't been healthy. So,
and even when he is healthy, he hasn't been trustable. So it's like, I think you have a good point there.
The other thing is, both these teams are so good where they're going to be rostered. They're going to be started. Like, you're going to play a Devin Duvernay in a game where you're like, I need the upside of a touchdown. and he could go for 3 points like he did today. I think at 2.5. Like, I don't see rosterable here. I don't want to touch these two teams outside of those 3 guys.
Yeah, I agree. Tampa Bay Bucks at the Pittsburgh Steelers. I wrote in my first note, what is up with the Bucks? Like, what are you doing? The offense looks so bad. And I got nothing. They really don't look like a good football team. The NFC is so wide open and so bad that the Bucks will probably still make like a divisional round, but the NFC Championship may be the Sunday Night Football game. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see about that one.
That's
but
a good call.
It could happen. The Rams don't look good, and the Rams' offensive line is not going to get better.
I was going to say, like, I think my preseason prediction, and I actually have it typed up, was San Francisco and Tampa, and I think I would move off of that to Eagles San Fran now.
But even San Fran just lost to freaking Atlanta.
I know.
Can't trust Jimmy G. It's like, I don't know. It's
so
anyway,
weird.
This is the NFL. This is the NFL that we're into now. What do you want to talk about? Because there's a lot here.
Yeah, I have a lot of points. So one of my hot takes, which I told Nick earlier today because we went through them for fun, see where we were at. One of them that I was not right on, or that I felt like I wouldn't be right on, is that the Steelers will have 3 top 30 receivers: George Pickens, Chase Claypool, and Deontay Johnson. I said it's pretty much impossible at this point. Like, Kenny Pickett's not going to distribute enough. Mitch Trubisky's wasn't distributing enough. Like, there's a better shot of all 30 finishing outside the top 30 than finishing in the top 30. But now you actually watch them spread the ball fairly well. Those top 3 guys that I just said, 6 targets, 7 targets, 7 targets amongst the 3. Deontay, I think that's the second game under 10 targets this year. So it's kind of an outlier, especially when you consider last year. Chase Claypool had his best game, I think, in 2 entire seasons. 7 catches, close to 100 yards, and the touchdown. Like, he was a monster.
You want to read my note for Chase Claypool?
Ha 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 ha. Nick,
just why? If I told you Claypool was going for 796 and a touchdown, you'd tell me who's your weed dealer.
Yeah. Or you would say, who was he traded to? Like, there was rumors of him being traded to Green Bay or the Rams before this week, which would not work out. He would not work at either of those. His personality would not work with those quarterbacks. But besides the point, I do think that there is upside of holding all 3. I don't think I trust any of them, or I don't trust anyone outside of Deontay yet. But you're seeing the talent. You're seeing them figure out ways to move the ball. And I do think they're going to be better for weeks to come. Last note, Chris Godwin, right back, like, no, not worried about the hamstring anymore. 12 targets, wide receiver 1 over there. Mike Evans went back to his role last year. 4 catches on 4 targets, and he's not touchdown dependent because he puts up a lot of yards, but the touchdown is really what makes or breaks his week and whether he becomes like a monster receiver or not. Like Nick and I talked about in this matchup where like his floor is going to be like 12, 14 points. And I think he finished sub 10 today. So,
yep. My other note is just like the Steelers really just don't look playable right now. It's just Deontay Johnson and the rest. Like they really don't look playable. It's all bad over there. It really is. All right. Carolina Panthers at the Los Angeles Rams. I'll start with that. Allen Robinson is still apparently alive. 563 and a touchdown. Now he's still on rosters.
Yeah, now that I'm playing against Nick this week,
he's still
started him. And,
he's still on rosters. He's still going to be on rosters after this week. Aside from that, Stafford's still really bad. I don't care what the numbers said today against Carolina. Stafford didn't look good. Stafford's bad. He had one good season with the Rams when he had a super team. Like, I'm not a Stafford guy. Nope. I talked him up before the season. This is the crap that I get dealt now. That's what I get for going against my original Stafford take for years. So I think you have some Panthers takes you want to talk about. Also, Robbie Anderson's going to hit the waiver wire in the NFL in like 2 days.
Yep.
So what an idiot. What a freaking idiot. I don't remember the last time I saw somebody get kicked out of a game. I don't even know if AB got kicked out last year. I think he walked off.
He took himself out.
I think he took himself out. Like Robbie Anderson got kicked out. I don't think I've seen this happen.
I don't remember this now. Like,
I don't either. I've watched a lot of football, and I don't. Even in college, like this is something you really don't see. He got kicked out of the game, which is hilarious. I don't know. I think that's
was very entertaining to watch, to say the least.
Wasn't as entertaining as AB, unfortunately.
So I said it would either be my best take or my dumbest take because of how right I've been on this player. I was wrong. DJ Moore, like, no, he did suck again. So I was right on my preseason take, was not on my weekly take. I'm going to continue busting DJ Moore up until he gets traded. Now, moving on to trades. So right now, my biggest takeaway, Christian McCaffrey, only startable Panther. I think we all knew this already. DJ Moore needs to get traded. My question is, where is he going to go? Because
he needs to go to Green Bay or Green Bay's. That's it.
So what's the teams that would realistically trade for him? Now, it sounds like the Panthers want a first-round pick. Green Bay is not going to give up a first-round pick. It's not in their culture. It's not in their identity. It's not going to happen. So what other team in the league could really use an elite wide receiver one where he'll thrive? He's creating separation. The quarterback talent's there. Like, what's the team? And my big takeaway is I can't think of one. Like there is none. There's no place that I think needs DJ Moore at the moment outside of Green Bay, and Green Bay is not going to do it for their culture. So my fear is DJ Moore, he's stuck there for the rest of the year.
He's in purgatory.
He is going to be stuck there, and it's going to suck for fantasy. It's going to suck for him. It's going to be a miserable year.
What about the Giants?
The Giants is another one I thought about, but I don't
know if the Giants would give a first-round pick away, but
are you trusting DJ Moore with Daniel Jones though?
I
trust him more than with Baker.
If they believe in Daniel Jones, like Daniel Jones is not playing bad right now. I think that's the test for Daniel Jones. If you go out and trade for an elite wide receiver, look what elite wide receivers have done for quarterbacks. Look what Diggs did for Josh Allen and what AJ Brown's helped do for Hurts. If they believe in, I'm not saying the Giants believe in DJ Moore. If they do, though, that's kind of the move to make, I think. The other team, the Ravens, if they believe in Lamar and actually want to see if he's the guy, the Ravens is a good one. I don't know if they give up first.
But outside of that Marquise Brown year, like the monster year that I think it was year 1 or year 2, like he hasn't put up an elite wide receiver either. So,
but is it a Lamar problem or is that a Marquise Brown problem?
I don't know.
Mark Andrews' stats are nuts. Mark Andrews has Kelsey stats right now.
No, 100%.
I don't think it's a Lamar problem. So I think those are the candidates. I just don't know if any of them give up a first round pick.
Team, and I'm going to just quickly raise who's interesting. Baltimore, yes. Chicago, that would suck, but I could see them trying to make a desperation move.
They need
Dallas. Dallas is always in talks for top guys.
Jerry does like top guys.
Houston could use a receiver. He won't thrive there. Indy could use a receiver. They probably won't make the move.
They have Pittman. They won't move for him. And they have Pierce, too, who looks good.
Rams, their receiving core looked a little bit better today.
It seems like the Rams are always in the mix for trades, but yeah.
New England, they're not going to move a first for him.
No.
The Giants, like Nick said. And then Tennessee. Like, there's no team where you're going to feel confident unless it's Green Bay of him going to. So you can't trade him because he doesn't have value, but maybe if you're a good salesman, you could go sell the he'll be better when he gets traded to the Rams or to the Packers.
All right, Buffalo at Kansas City. Really fun game. Really, really fun game.
No.
What do you mean no?
Miserable.
Why?
Because I have to play you this week, and I said, let me trade away Juju. He sucked all year from Michael Thomas. Oh, guess what? Michael Thomas.
That's on you for not reading the injury report.
Juju. Best game of the season against the best defense they've played all year.
Hand up, I had Juju on my all bust team. Wrong.
No
I'm looking at my all boom and all bust teams. I had like 2 things wrong. Jeff Wilson was wrong on my all boom, and Juju was wrong on my all bust
this week.
So my teams are pretty good. Gabriel Davis is on my all boom team. He is a Chiefs killer. He had 374 and a touchdown. I think he had 5 receptions total or 6 targets total, I think. I don't think Isaiah McKenzie's in the mix for the 1 and 2. I think that pipe dream can get crushed at this point. Diggs looked great and Kelsey looked great. Clyde Edwards-Helaire did not look great either.
I'm going to disagree with you on the Isaiah McKenzie thing.
Do you think it's a 2A, 2B, or what do you think on it?
I do think it's 2A, 2B because you did watch McKenzie get good usage. He just wasn't capitalizing on it. He only had 1 less target than Gabriel Davis, and they looked to hand the ball off to him like they did that check swing that wound up being a fumble, like a bad miscommunication. So that would have been 6 touches for each of them.
Yeah.
So I do think it is fair. 2A, 2B. I think McKenzie's role is slot, so you're not going to go watch him burn. And like I said about Gabriel Davis before the year, he's going to be touchdown or bust. He's the wide receiver too, and he's the best wide receiver too you can have, even over Jalen Waddle, because he has so much upside week to week because they will have the number 1 scoring offense in football.
That's fair. All right, last game. The Arizona Cardinals at the Seahawks. Kyler got punked. My Hawks, baby. Oh, yeah. Geno's the man. I love watching Geno Smith play football. And I said it on this podcast. If the Seahawks make the playoffs with Geno Smith, I am purchasing a Geno Smith jersey. That will hang in my closet forever. All right. What's your biggest takeaway? Because there's a couple ones here that we want to. Let's talk Hollywood Brown first. He didn't look bad. They get 11, 12 fantasy points in a game where the Cardinals, I don't think, scored a touchdown. Did they? I don't think they did.
I don't.
They scored a defensive touchdown. Doesn't count.
Yes. They didn't score.
So anyway, I don't want to put that all on Hollywood Brown that they didn't score an offensive touchdown. With that said, though, he did get hurt on an interception when he fell to the ground. He got MRIs. I did get a notification. They were negative, but is one to monitor with Rondale Moore. I think he had 12 fantasy points, and Hopkins is also coming back. I don't know if any thoughts on that, but that's our injury segment, I guess. That's the only injury that we really have to talk about.
Yeah, real quick on it, I'm going to reiterate a point I made for a couple episodes just in case we do have new viewers. I know we had a big live stream yesterday. So my big concern before the year is when DeAndre Hopkins gets back. Hopkins is going to take away those 10 targets. Like, he's going to recommand that wide receiver 1 role. And from what I've seen from Marquise Brown, I think I was wrong on that. I think Marquise Brown is going to be the 10 target guy. And DeAndre Hopkins is going to be 6, 7 targets, third down, big plays, touchdowns, red zone. Like, I think that's going to be his role. So will both be fantasy relevant? Yes. Do I think Hollywood Brown will outscore DeAndre Hopkins the rest of the season? Probably, depending on what the injury is. What I will say is he had his worst game of the year. And like, it was a tough matchup, but he still managed to find a lot of workload. Like, he still had 9 targets. He was still fairly productive. I mean, if he found the end zone, which he has more weeks than not up to this point, like, he's another monster receiver game. He's a top 10 receiver still. So, I mean, I think Marquise Brown, if we find out he's back next week, I would go trade for him.
That's a good take. I also want to mention here, we were recording before Sunday Night Football, and I just peeked at my TV, and it looked like Meek Mill was performing something there, probably Dreams and Nightmares. If that's true, Eagles by 1 billion tonight. That might not age well because the game's going to be over by the time you listen to this episode. Anyway, Kenneth Walker looked great. I think he had 100 yards and a touchdown in his first game as a rookie starter. Looked great. Very happy to have Kenneth Walker in our league with my abysmal team, because that would be a pretty sweet keeper for next year. Aside from that, Kyler stunk. Call of Duty comes up next week, so maybe Kyler got an early code because he's famous, maybe, but he looked horrible. And he's going to be playing Thursday Night Football against the Saints on the night that Call of Duty comes out. Comes out at midnight Thursday night. So, yeah. That's not good at all, because Kyler may want to get out of that game as fast as possible. He's going to have to shower in the locker room and listen to Kingsbury's stupid ass post-game speech, win or lose, but he's going to be ready to go home and play some Call of Duty. I don't know where the game is. Is the game in New Orleans? Because if it is, he's definitely bringing his game console. I'm going to look right now. No, it's in Arizona. He'll go back to his mansion to play Call of Duty at night. Yeah. So my serious take, though, the Cardinals don't look like a good football team. The only way that we've seen the Cardinals score effective both NFL and fantasy points is in garbage time. And the Seahawks defense somehow turned into the Legion of Boom in the second half and just didn't let up a touchdown the entire game. I don't know how it happened. Tariq Woolen's a great corner, but aside from that, they somehow looked really good. And I'm happy about that as a Seahawks fan, but I'm not sure that's going to last. I think Arizona's offense just isn't clicking. And maybe Hopkins is the boost that they need, but they have a lot of talent over there. So, all right. Last segment of the show, Monday Night Football preview. We're going to talk about these projections, give you an over-under, let you know what to expect tonight if you could have some Monday Night miracles. Russell Wilson, 16.9 fantasy points. What are we thinking?
You said bust. I'm going to say boom.
Oh, no, it's a bust. No, you can't boom Russell Wilson.
I have to.
He only has one shoulder.
He had 11 days rest with that shoulder. And no guy. I mean, Derwin James can hang, but no one is hanging with Sutton back there.
All right. I'm busting it. Until I see him perform at a consistent basement, he's a bust for me.
Fair.
Justin Herbert, 18.1.
That I'm gonna say I'm not making a take here because I have to play him against Nick.
No, you have to make a take. This is the show. You have to make a take. I'm playing him in 2 leagues. I'm going to make a take. You have to make a take. Over, under. I'm going over. I'm going over because he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Like, he still has all his offensive weapons, and the Broncos are terrible. And I just think the Broncos are terrible, and that's the bottom line.
I'm gonna go with under. I don't think he exceeded this number since he had that rib injury. I'm not sure he's fully healthy. I don't think he's letting up.
How about Melvin Gordon, 12.6? I'm going to say over. He's in my boom team. I actually need him to go over in a league, and he's versing the Chargers, who have the worst run defense in the league in terms of fantasy points. So
I agree with that take.
Austin Eckler, 17.6. He's looked great. I'm smashing the over every week on Eckler at this point.
I am definitely smashing the under. He's been so touchdown reliant. I think this game is going to be an under game. I don't think it will be an over game. And without the touchdowns, he hasn't been bad for fantasy, but he hasn't been awesome excellence, which is the nickname he was dubbed by many last year.
How about Cortland Sutton, 16.8? That's a respectable number. I mean, that's a high number.
They're upping it. It's been consistently at like 12 to 14. 13. So
that shows that he's a receiver who's getting up there. What do you think?
I'm going to go with the over. I do think he has massive upside, big touchdown every single week, and his range of target is so far down the field. I think this is the best matchup where he's had the upside of a 100-yard game.
I'm going the under, right around 14 or 15, just slightly under for me. How about Jerry Jeudy, his partner in crime, 11.5?
I'm going to go over as well. I think the Broncos are going to look a lot better this week. I think off 11 days, I think Russell Wilson is going to have to take more command of that offense, which is something he's not really used to doing. But I do think the Broncos are going to bounce back. I think they have way too much talent on both sides of the ball to be this bad through 5 weeks and not make it some sort of change.
If the Broncos don't bounce back, the memes on Twitter are going to be hilarious. I'm going over for Jerry Jeudy. He has a big touchdown in this one. How about Mike Williams, 13.5?
I know he's on your old bust team. I'm going to bust him as well on this.
He's on my old bust team. I think I said 12 points is right around where he's getting. So I'll say he's getting 12 or 13. I don't think he has the worst game in the world, but I don't think he's getting the numbers that you really want. Joshua Palmer, 10.4.
You're playing him against me. I'm playing him in another league. I need him to do well, but not too well. I'm going to go with right at that 10 number. I think I'll
go over right at like 12, hopefully.
I feel like he's going to have like a 2 for 20 and a touchdown. Like, that's the kind of game I think he's getting here.
How about, oh man, Hurts just got smashed. This Cowboys defense is pretty ferocious. How about any Broncos tight end? I just wouldn't play any of them, if I'm being honest with you. I'm just going to.
You're not going to play any, but because we did it last week and we got a pop from our moderator in the chat, Mr. Joe, we will do the 1.8 over under.
1.8 for Albert O. I'll just say the over because you see the catch in like 8 yards.
Well, last week I think he had a catch for 6 yards or 5 yards. So I'm going to go with the 1.5. I'm going to go with the under for Albert O.
And lastly, Gerald Everett at 10. I'll say under at like 8.
I'm going to go with over. He's been very good outside of last week.
All right. I played Hayden Hurst over him. Late time decision by me that I played against you.
And he played pretty well.
He played okay. All right. If you guys enjoyed the show, hopefully you did. Thank you so much. If you're in Spotify or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please give us a 5-star rating and a review. If you're on YouTube, please drop a like on this video, share it with your friends, hit that subscribe button. We'd appreciate all of that. Next time you hear from us is tomorrow for Waiver Wire Tuesday show and some injury updates and other fun stuff. You can find that show on all audio streaming platforms and, of course, our YouTube channel. Thank you guys so much for listening. Enjoy Monday Night Football tonight. Hopefully you win your Week 6 matchups.